Hello, class. Welcome. I'm Professor Oakes, and I'm going to be walking with you through this journey this semester. I hope you enjoy this class, and it's a very dynamic time to be studying intelligence collection, analysis, and technology. The only thing consistent is change, and we live in an age of exponential change when it comes to technology and when it comes to how that technology is impacting intelligence collection and analysis. So that's going to be a big thrust of this class. You do have this first session is going to be a little bit longer. You'll have one of these for me each week. Generally speaking, they might be 10 or 15 minutes long. This one, I'm going to walk through the syllabus briefly with you. So I ask for your patience there, and then we'll touch a little bit on the week one requirements, okay? So you do have two required textbooks. You have the George and Bruce Analyzing Intelligence, National Security Practitioners' Perspectives. So you should have that. That's our primary text, and then we'll be augmenting that with Greg Treverton's Intelligence for an Age of Terror. Both of those are in the syllabus. They are in APA format in the syllabus, hint, hint. So you might want to take a look at that and make sure that when you're referring to those two books that you follow the model that I've already provided. And then you can kind of build on that from APA skills. Within our classroom, over on the left-hand side, you will also see a series of helps that are over there. There are also several APA examples over there and examples of basically what discussion posts should look like, papers, etc. As well, you can find those things in the syllabus. Okay. There are, all of your work is due by midnight on Sunday nights. Because of the way Blackboard is configured, in order for me to give you that extra minute between 11:59 and midnight, I have to set the due dates in Blackboard to the following day. So Blackboard considers midnight to be the first time of the day. And so all your work is due by midnight Sunday night before you go to bed, right? However, when you look at it, don't be confused by the fact that the date for that is actually Monday, because our software shows that as the first time of the following day, okay? And I didn't want to, set you up for 11:59, and then sure enough, as soon as I do that, somebody will come back and be like, hey, I tried to post it at 11:59 and it didn't go in. What the heck? So therefore 12 o'clock, but mind the date, okay? During the course of our time together, it's a very, very rushed course. I shouldn't say rushed, that's the wrong word for it. It's a compressed course. If you look at the syllabus, there's some hour recommendations in there of what you should be allowing for this compressed course. The material within the course mirrors what would still be, in a 14 to 16 week course. So the fact that it's a shortened term, it just means there's more work each week. So do the best you can to kind of stay ahead of that. Please do participate in discussion in an online format. That's pretty much our classroom. So that's where we all get to know each other and get to express ideas and have these conversations that are going to be very, very important. I would ask that you always be professional and considerate. If you are in this program, then the majority of you are probably looking for careers towards intelligence or law enforcement, and so it's early. It's never too early to start learning those basic skills of what I affectionately call professional diplomacy, which is how do you interact with peers, and even if you have a disagreement, or how you see things if it's not a consensus, etc. So part of the point of the discussion is to have that dialectical process, and what that is just basically debate. So if you don't agree with somebody, it's okay to say that you don't agree with them or challenge a thought, but I would ask that you always be respectful and you always be professional in the context of that while you're doing that, okay? So you're going to have one of those discussion posts each week. There's 2 questions. You have to respond to both questions in an APA format. There's examples in the syllabus and in the classroom. And then when you're done with that, you have to come back and respond to 2 other students. So make sure that you're getting all that weekly work done, okay? We will not have a discussion board in the final week of class, week 7, because you have a paper due that week and there's a final exam. But you will have the first 6 weeks of class, okay? We talked about etiquette. I talked about APA, right? You have 2 papers that will be due in the course of the class. One is about just over halfway through, and the other one's at the very end. And we're just going to build towards those with content through your reading and through your weekly work, so that when the time comes for the papers and the prompts, you are sitting in a stronger position of being informed and understanding basically some of these concepts, so that you can write to them from that level. This first week, when we start to look at intelligence disciplines, you will see in your reading of George and Bruce that OSINT, which is open source intelligence, is one of the nascent intelligence disciplines in this age of technology. During the course of this class, you will notice in week 1 that I've assigned each of you a country, and you will have that country this entire semester with me. And during the course of our studies together, you will be required to gather, to collect information from open sources, generally speaking, the internet, etc., and build me briefings that you will present to me on two separate occasions during the course of the class. The idea here is that you use OSINT because obviously we're not in a classified format, so that's the collection that we have, right? And so you're going to use OSINT to collect your information towards your country. When you look at the assignment, you will see that there's some intelligence requirements that I've given you, like I want to know about this, and this. So as you're gathering information for a couple of weeks, you're going to gather information that relates to those requirements that I've given you, and then you're going to brief me on those requirements, and then we're going to reset the clock. Maybe I'll add a couple more requirements, and then you're going to do it again. This is to make sure that you get some tradecraft practice and you walk through that entire process. Even though it's OSINT, it should give you some insight into how some of those processes would work, even though it's not a written report, it's a briefing that you're given, okay? So 2 papers, 2 briefings, 6 discussions, and a final exam, a comprehensive exam, which is a final check on learning, basically. The final exam won't be open until right when it's time to take it, and it'll be open for a period of 72 hours. That's because obviously, if you're in an online program, again, often when students are in online programs, they have other requirements. So I can't really hammer it down to like a 3-hour window as we would do in a face-to-face class. And this is because maybe somebody has to work that night, or maybe somebody's in the military, or they're X, Y, or Z. Maybe they're, I don't know, pick something. Maybe they have a baby. I don't know. So I give you a 72-hour window. It is a comprehensive exam, but it shouldn't take more than, I would say, 2 to 3 hours to complete. In terms of that, but it'll open right at the beginning of that 72-hour window. It'll be open for 72 hours and then it'll close. So you're going to submit that like a normal assignment when you're done with that exam, okay? So that is the context of the work that we have in the course of this class. And it doesn't sound like much, but it's reading heavy. And again, it is the material that we would cover in a 14 to 16-week class in the span of 7.5 weeks. So it's pretty chewy to get through. I'm not going to baby you by reading you the entire syllabus when you get into the classroom. Hopefully you've already gone and looked. You're going to have a thing where you're going to tell me that you acknowledge that you've read the syllabus, and that way when I'm going through and grading by the rubrics or whatever, we already have an understanding that nothing should be a surprise to you. It's not ambush learning, etc., because you will have already told me that you've read the syllabus, and so you understand how things are going to be graded and how we're going to conduct our business in this class, right? Of course, right. Okay. So coming into this week, for week 1, the very first thing that we're going to be looking at this week is basically an introduction to intelligence and the analytic tradition, right? And so when we say the analytic tradition, analysis has been around, collection and analysis has been around. People joke about intelligence, and with no disrespect intended, they say it's the second oldest profession. But certainly the first time, a caveman looked across the valley and saw another caveman had fire, he collected that information, right? He analyzed it, that there was maybe something that he wanted there related to his own security or creature comforts, and basically from there came up with a plan either by himself or with his neighbors to make sure that he also acquired fire. So that's a very elementary analogy, but essentially that's how old intelligence is, right? One of the things that we want to look at this week is what is the difference between intelligence and information? We all move through our lives gathering information on a day-to-day basis. And there's an author, Mark Lowenthal. I used to use his book in this class, and I changed books out and updated the class, but I do want to use this quote from him, that all intelligence is information, but all information is not intelligence. So what makes intelligence? It's when we start to refine it and we start to use processes to cause that refinement so that we can come up with what will ultimately be analytical conclusions. So using another analogy, let's say you're going to work one day, or you're going home, you're going somewhere, and you have the same route that you've taken every single day. So you go home one day and you notice that they're starting to put up construction pylons and some minor reroutes, et cetera. So in this collection phase of what it is that you're seeing, it's just raw information. Your eyes are seeing something, your ears, maybe you're hearing something. And so you have this raw data that's coming into your senses, in this case, not a system, although this is a system too, but not an electronic system. And from those things, you gather this data and you start to determine that, hey, maybe there is some construction that's going on that may have to alter my route. And so I start to collect other information related to how I might relay that route to a different way to get there shorter, faster, whatever, without a phone or with a phone, right, et cetera. And as I start to do that, I'm starting to draw in analysis. Well, it might be this, it might be this, it might be this, it might be this. And once I refine all of those different contingencies and all of those different options, and I decide on a conclusion, I've now basically come out of that analysis and I have a decision, I've made a decision. So if I was a policymaker in this example, right, or a decision maker, I have the data now that I need to make that decision to inform my decision to take this different route for however long I'm going to be. So again, an elementary representation of the overall intelligence process and cycle, but just so that you understand, information is just raw data, just like this OSINT thing that you're going to do in the course of this class. That's just raw data, right? If it's journalistic and it's coming out, hopefully it's been refined to a certain extent, because certainly part of what an intelligence analyst does is similar in a sense to what a journalist does. Which brings me to the second point that we're going to talk about this week, which is biases. Not that I'm saying that journalists are biased, because we're not going there in this class, okay? So the second thing we're going to look at this week is bias, because when we later on, many weeks from now, when we get into the technology piece of it, and we start to talk a little bit about artificial intelligence and how computer and AI, et cetera, like that can help us with analytical algorithms depending on what the intelligence discipline is and where the information is coming from. At the basis of the decision-making process inherently is still a human being. So central to the tradecraft, the analytical tradition, is an understanding of what biases we can bring without even realizing it to the table. All of us are all grown-ups in this class, so I'm sure we're all aware of some biases, right? We have them in our day-to-day basis. We're pummeled with them every single day as we move through our lives, right? So some of those are personal or cultural biases, and we're very familiar with those as people. But then there's other trickier ones, cognitive biases, et cetera, that you'll see in different technical realms, and they definitely impact not just individuals but teams in intelligence analysis. So we're going to start to kind of dip a toe into some of those things. Finally, in the course of this week's kind of introduction, as we move into it, you're gonna learn more about the intelligence disciplines, the respective intelligence disciplines. The word int, which is the beginning of the word intelligence, is used within the intelligence field to determine a collection asset, and then the type of intelligence. So as an example, SIGINT, which would be signals intelligence, HUMINT, which is human intelligence, GEOINT, which is geospatial intelligence, et cetera. I want you to stick to the ints that you see in the assigned readings, whether it's something that I put in Blackboard for you or in the George and Bruce book, or Trevorton. Don't go out and Google the questions and then give me something that you find with the word int on it, because it's become sort of a jargonistic thing and people are assigning it to things that it doesn't apply to. So when I talk about the ints, I talk about the ints relative to this class that are in the book. And those are the ints we're talking about, not some other, one that springs to mind is FININT, FININT. I see that out there. That's great. I'm not disavowing that in terms of like finance. Certainly finance is a piece of something that we do in intelligence operations, but FININT as it stands is not a recognized intelligence discipline within the larger Department of Defense or national level agencies, et cetera. So stick with the ints that are in the book, okay? So you're going to learn a little bit about those, and then you're going to talk about some of the analytical implications related to a collection discipline. So at the end of the analysis is generally always a human being, and they may have tools around them that are helping them conduct that analysis. But the collection source itself has a direct impact on how some of that analysis can occur. So we're going to also stick our toe kind of into that little pool of water this week too. So we're going to kind of start out slow. There's some reading, and like I said, it's a reading heavy course. So I highly recommend that you start reading and keep reading and don't fall behind in the reading, because that'll mess you up. Okay. Start doing that, and then you're going to go in and do those discussion questions, and make sure you look at week one and make sure that you look and see what your country is, so you can just create like a little file on your desktop or whatever, and maybe just every day when you're checking the news or checking your email or whatever, go out there and see what's out there and start to collect some of that information and stash it aside. That way in a couple of weeks, in week 3, when you have your first briefing due, you have this source of information where you can start to string this together and build an intelligence briefing over what you have collected during this first 2-week period. All right? So week 1 and week 2, that's pretty much what we're doing. And with discussions, you'll have a video lecture for week 2 too. And by the time we hit week 3, you're going to start to see that rhythm go up a little bit more, in terms of this is where the papers will start to come in there, the briefings will start to come in there, et cetera. So we're going to lay easy foundation. I'm going to throw you in the pool and let you swim around a little bit. We'll start with some cursory things, and then we're going to build on that. Okay. So my contact information is in the syllabus. It's in Blackboard as well. I will check my email every single day. If you have an issue related to an assignment, or something, an emergency type situation, my number is in there, and you feel free to text me. Because sometimes, if you have an emergency and you email me and I don't check my email till the next day, then you've been sitting there stewing in it for like 18 hours. So if it's an emergency, go ahead and text me, and then I will probably politely say, "Who is this, please?" And then identify yourself, just because I don't carry all the students around on my phone all the time. And then we'll see if we can work through the situation, okay? Because I'm here for you in the course of this class, right? I thank you very much for taking the class. I hope that you enjoy it. I think that, obviously it's part of this program, and hopefully it will add to that professional portfolio of whatever it is you desire to do in the course of your professional life. But if you've just taken it sideways as an elective, I think it's probably a good thing too, because from a civics perspective, it doesn't hurt for an American citizen to understand processes and how things work. And that helps us keep straight and understand the black and white of things and not the shades of gray. There's so many shades of gray that can exist out there, right? So that is it for week one. That's our once over the world. Make sure you do your reading. Look for those questions about the intelligence disciplines and the implications for analysis. We're going to talk about those biases. Make sure that you pay close attention to those biases, because we're going to build on that over a couple of weeks. And I also want you to self-check when you're doing your briefings, right? I'm informing you about bias so that you don't catch yourself, you know, immediately leaping to conclusions or making assumptions or making huge analytic leaps of faith when there's not information there to necessarily substantiate your hypothesis. All right. So that is it for week one. It's a pleasure meeting you, and I look forward to working with you. You guys have a great day, and I'll see you in the funny papers. Bye.